With the men that you've mentored, you've seen personal care, personal discipleship, mentorship really affect them and keep them on course. What have been the most common things in the people you've seen get off course beyond a lack of accountability?
Yeah, I think in this generation, being a pastor's hard because the evangelical church is so deeply politically divided. People are listening to sermons politically, and if you speak to an issue, you get in trouble. If you don't speak to it, you get in trouble. And sometimes it seems like you're dancing on the edge of a razor blade without getting cut. So guys get tired, they get discouraged, they get angry, they get tempted to go after things that wouldn't be helpful to go after. Or they just come to the point where they just think, I just don't want to do this.
We all have the capacity to, on any given day, completely turn from Christ as our source of identity, the gospel and what he's done for us, and make it something else. I'm that guy. Our listeners are those people who are on the doorsteps, ready to close the church and be done. Well, what do you say to them right now?
You know, the thing that I always think about when I get up in the morning, for me now, it's writing. I don't always get up in the morning and think, oh good, I get to write today. And so you have to become good at preaching the gospel to yourself, because it's quite regular where you wake up in the morning and you're just a gospel amnesiac. You've forgotten who you are, you've forgotten what you've been given, you've forgotten the glory of what you've been called to. Or you need to call somebody and say, I just don't feel like doing anything God has called me to do. I need help. But preaching the gospel to yourself is very important. And when you do that, you realize the most wonderful, the most glorious, the most honor-giving work in the universe is the work of redemption. The glory of this is God doesn't call people because they're able. He calls us because he's able. I mean, think of the disciples. What a collection of losers. None of those guys would ever get in the first step of an application of any ministry that we respect. But those are the guys Christ chose. Now, why does he choose weak people? Well, 2 Corinthians tells us, so jars of clay is a weakness image. You drop a jar of clay, it breaks. So that it would be clear that the all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. I think weakness in ministry is not a curse, it's a blessing. Because it's hard to name yourself as weak and be full of yourself at the same time. And if you believe the gospel, what does weakness drive you to? It drives you to Jesus. It drives you to find hope and joy in him. Find your strength, your wisdom, your righteousness in him. And so those habits of either preaching the gospel to myself so I don't lose my gospel mind in the midst of ministry, because all of us could do that, or having somebody who preaches the gospel to me. I mean, everybody loses their gospel mind. That's why we need people.
Explain what that is a little bit, and how do we get it back?
So the gospel is not just an entrance and an exit. Entrance in relation with God, exit into eternity. But between the already and the not yet, the gospel is a way of thinking about yourself, thinking about the people around you, really thinking about everything in life. I talk about putting on your gospel glasses and say, if I look at this thing through the vantage point of the gospel of Jesus Christ, how would that look? I mean, gospel mind is all I ever do in my writing. If you take life as a big circle, I'm standing in the middle, and I just look at another thing and say, how would this look if I looked at it through the vantage point of the message of the gospel? If I took the gospel seriously, what it says about people, what it says about the world we live in, what it says about what's important and what's not, how would this thing look different?
How can we begin to practice that? When you ask yourself, if I look at this conflict, this email that I just received from the congregant who's mad at me about worship style, that we're too loud or whatever, How can I begin to look at that email through the gospel? What's the exercise?
So how does the gospel change the way that I think about being mistreated? Well, Romans 12. I love this passage. It says, do good to those who mistreat you. And then it says, vengeance is mine, I will repay, leave room for God's wrath. What is God saying? I'll take care of it. Stay out of my way. Leave room for me. So there's gospel mind. Another passage says, you overcome evil with, not more evil, with good. Another passage says, it's the goodness of God that leads people to repentance. So now I'm getting an agenda for how to deal with this thing. And you can just take that all over the place. Whether it's my relationship to government, my relationship to my neighbor, my relationship to my sexuality, my relationship to my money. It's just endless that the message of the gospel alters the way I think about and respond to that thing.